on Thursday.
Minute and a half to the open.
Fall short, but they may have found something special.
Mics are hot starting now.
It's the first show of 2023, and we are excited to be here because there is so much to get to. The greatest college football playoff semifinal weekend to date has set the table for next Monday's national championship game between TCU and Georgia. An Orange Bowl victory for the Vols marks win number 11, and it is the start of the final week of the NFL's regular season as the Tennessee Titans will travel to Jacksonville for some Saturday night football that will determine the AFC South Championship. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm Lucas Panzica. This is the Buck Reising Show. Buck is not here. He's also not needed because the great Rhett Bryan is here, executive producer of Titans Radio. Happy New Year, Rhett.
Happy New Year, Lucas, and we are glad to be here at Scoreboard Bar and Grill all day long. 104.5 The Zone is. We'll be here till 1. But, yeah, there is so much to talk about from now we know the Titans are going to play Saturday night, 7:15 kick. We'll be on the air with Titans Radio Network coverage at 6, and I'm sure the Zone will have us cranked up at probably 4 on Saturday. But anyway, yeah, that's set now. College semi-finals in the college football playoff, the big Orange Bowl win for the Vols, and then there's 4 bowl games today. I mean, it's loaded. Let's go.
I love this New Year's Day. It's not technically New Year's Day. Usually these bowl games are played on the 1st of January. Calendar was a little funky this year. The NFL officially gets New Year's Day in 2023, but I love this final day of college football before the national championship with, I'm still going to call it the Outback Bowl. I don't care that it's the ReliaQuest Bowl. To me, that was the most offensive name change of any bowl game.
It's like Acrisure Stadium, right?
Exactly. It just, there's no matter how long it is that way, it's never going to sound right. Speaking of Acrisure Stadium, big win for the Steelers last night to stay in playoff contention.
What a throw by Kenny Pickett to Najee Harris right there to seal it up.
Mike Vrabel will speak to the media at noon. You can hear that live right here on The Zone. Coach Doug Mathews will join us in about 15 minutes to recap that Orange Bowl victory for the Vols. But we're going to try and match the energy of the college football playoff action over the weekend. Talk about ringing in the new year. Did you see the simulcast that was put together of the ball dropping with the countdown to midnight paired with Ohio State missing a 50-yard field goal attempt to send Georgia to the national championship?
I missed that. Now, I know that they both happened, like, literally within seconds of each other.
Like, as the ball is going wide left, the clock strikes midnight Eastern time. And the game's being played in Atlanta, so it's happening in Eastern time.
Sure.
So Georgia fans rang in the new year in emphatic fashion. I am not a proponent of the college football playoff happening on New Year's Eve. I don't like college football trying to make it a New Year's Eve tradition. I think it should be on a different day, but that was amazing to see the ball literally pass the upright wide left as the clock hits 0 to ring in the new year.
Yeah, that was both of those games were fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, the TCU Michigan game was outstanding, but yeah, that was a double dose of some really good football.
How about
college football.
182 total points for a college football playoff semifinal? With both games combined, TCU 51-45 over Michigan, Georgia 42-41 over Ohio State. It was like every time you felt like a death blow was landed, there was an answer on both sides in both games. Truly, you couldn't have asked for a better weekend of the college football playoff. You didn't think that Georgia, Ohio State could possibly one-up what we saw from TCU and Michigan, but that's exactly what they did. And Georgia will have a chance to play for consecutive national championships against TCU. I still cannot believe that Coach Mack's Horned Frogs are in the college football playoff national
And he's
title.
got to be the happiest man in Middle Tennessee right now.
Frog.
Because he's going to enjoy that, and then he knows that the Titans have everything on the table, all the marbles. The winner of Saturday night's game against the Jaguars to finish up the regular season of Week 18 wins the AFC South Division crown. The Titans win this. They'll win it for the third consecutive season. They would immediately host a playoff game the following weekend at Nissan Stadium during Wild Card Weekend.
Primetime action for the Titans on Saturday night, 7:15 kickoff in Jacksonville. So the Titans on a long week. They have that advantage, having played Thursday Night Football and obviously rested so many starters. The Jags do not. They played in Houston yesterday and cruised to a dominant win over the Houston Texans, winning their fourth consecutive game. But they started all their guys. Now, they eventually pulled.
Yeah, it ended up being C.J. Beathard at quarterback.
But yeah, those guys played a lot of snaps.
They did. And listen, Travis Etienne is starting to really come into his own in this. He is dangerous. Had a 62-yard touchdown run in that yesterday to put them up 14-0 early. And he had a really nice day. But, yeah, they ended up sitting all their starters pretty much. And, the thing I am interested to get your take on is all these Jags fans griping and complaining about, well, the Titans have had a long week to prepare, and it's a short week for them. I can't remember who tweeted this last night, but I wanted to reply to it and say, hey, listen, the Titans were the only team of 32 in the NFL to get the lucky draw of having 2 Thursday night games, which means 6 of their 17 games came in a 22-day span. Cry me a river.
And you didn't have to play your starters in Houston. Like Doug Peterson wanted to do there's no such thing as a meaningless game. No, there is, and that was a meaningless game.
And when you got up so much,
what'd you do?
The score got separated. You put the boys down on the bench.
Right. So Titans and Jags, obviously winner take all in the AFC South. There may be a couple of matchups in the NFL next weekend where it is essentially a playoff game. Win or go home. Titans-Jags is just that. The ReliaQuest Bowl will kick off at 11 a.m. Mississippi State and Illinois playing in Tampa Bay. Of course, the Rose Bowl later on this afternoon.
The granddaddy of them all.
3HL will be here for that. So come to Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Take in all the college football action. Start your year with this year's best football food and drinks. Join Scoreboard and Oil Fire Spirits for the path to the college football championship, which is 1 week from today. Grab a glass of Oil Fire and say goodbye to 2022 at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/events today. Also, by the way, this is literally your last opportunity to go somewhere, sit down, grab a beer, and watch football for like 7 hours consecutively.
Well, let's take a step further because Kelsey here at Scoreboard reminded us that there's a place where you can sign up today, and you must be here and present to win. But they're going to draw next week for a private 20-person viewing party for the Super Bowl right here in a special event tent at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. So another reason for you to come out here and enjoy some spirits, enjoy some college football, enjoy 104.5 The Zone discussing everything with you. And it's the whole package on what technically is the new year. This is New Year's Day, basically, because all the banks and financial institutions are closed. There's no mail today. And so it's being observed as a holiday because it fell on Sunday.
Yeah, most of you are off work, so come hang out with us. We're on the back patio here at Scoreboard Bar and Grill. We're going to be watching college football, talking Titans, talking Vols, talking playoff. You have to be here to enter to win, by the way, for that private Super Bowl tailgate package. Right. So be sure to come on by Scoreboard Bar and Grill on Music Valley Drive near Opry Mills. We will be here until 6 p.m. Coming up next, Coach Doug Mathews will join us to recap Tennessee's 31-14 win over Clemson in the Orange Bowl from Friday night. The Vols with win number 11, closing out 2022 strong. And how did that set the stage for 2023? Coach Doug Mathews will join us to talk about it next. Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan with you live from Scoreboard on 104.5 The Zone.
The 3-8.
Clear.
Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and
Song a lot in Miami on Friday. Tennessee 31, Clemson 14. In the 2022 Orange Bowl, the Vols reach win number 11 and close the season strong against the ACC champion Clemson Tigers. Welcome in 104.5 The Zone, broadcasting live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill until 6. Lucas Panzica alongside Rhett Bryan as we welcome in Coach Doug Mathews to react to that Vols win over the Clemson Tigers. Coach Mathews, Happy New Year. Hope you're doing well.
Well, Happy New Year, Lucas, to you, and certainly to the great Rhett Bryan. He does so. He's a kind of a Swiss Army knife. Does so many things. Going way back. We got a relationship back to the early days of Titan Radio.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, that's not what I'm on here for.
Yeah, but your
Go
check's
ahead.
in the mail, though.
Jack of all
Thank you.
trades, Rhett Bryan, just like Coach Doug Mathews, a coach, a broadcaster, so many things, Coach. But let's get into this game because for me, going into the Orange Bowl, I thought there was some pressure on Joe Milton here. In my mind, this performance was going to set the tone for how the quarterback situation at Tennessee was going to be discussed for the entire offseason. Will it be okay? This is Milton's time, or will it be get Nico ready ASAP? And Coach, I thought Joe had the best performance of his Tennessee career. There were issues, there were mistakes, but overall, I thought he put out his best effort.
Well, there's no question from a fan standpoint. I don't think from a coach's standpoint, certainly Coach Heupel's standpoint, there was any question about Joe Milton. Maybe a little bit on how he would react in ball games, but remember, he's played in a bunch of ball games, and certainly had the Vanderbilt game to play in the last part of South Carolina. But from a fan perspective, and I didn't know from my perspective, which that my perspective now is a fan. That's the one thing I think of this ball game everybody wanted to see, regardless of how the outcome of this game came out, win, lose, or whatever. That's the 2022 season. But what I was looking for, and I think what a lot of Tennessee fans were looking for, what does next year look like with the opt-outs and with the players that were not playing for one reason or another, health issues, other things. This was going to be a game that was going to be played with a lot of players that are going to be counted on for the 2023 season. And certainly Joe Milton is the way he looked, the way he prepared, the way that he played in the game, and what is every Tennessee fan aware of, whether it's right or wrong. Hey, the guy has not had real good accuracy throwing the ball 25, 30, 40 yards down the field. So that's what I think Tennessee fans want to see. That's what I wanted to see. It's pretty apparent that there is talent at most of the positions. Certainly there's some things on defense that needs to be cleaned up, but quarterback in this offense, you just look at all the bowl games that we've seen so far, including the two semifinal games. If you don't have a quarterback now that can make plays in big ball games, you're probably not going to win. And Joe Milton checked that box. His touch down the field was good. Just some things that I noticed that are so important to an offensive play caller, an offensive coach, and an offensive team. His awareness in the pocket. We talk about taking sacks. You don't like to see those, but sometimes, many times, it's better to take a sack than force a ball. He did that. He pulled the ball down and ran with it when he needed to, and I thought he exhibited really clear leadership out on the field. Just real quickly on that, which should be expected. He is what I like to call soaked for 2 years. He sat behind Hendon Hooker in the meetings and practice and all those things. I think he learned from that. He's an experienced player. He's, 23 years old. He's a graduate. So I think all those things bode well. I cannot imagine any Tennessee fan that really has watched him progress has many concerns. Now, is he going to be Hendon Hooker? No. But Tennessee's not going to have one like Hendon Hooker probably for a while. It was 25 years to Peyton Manning. While we've had certainly some very good quarterbacks up there, we haven't had an elite quarterback like Hendon Hooker.
Doug Mathews with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, you talked about this team displaying a lot of talent that is going to be relied upon and needed in 2023 and beyond. And you talked about Joe Milton, and I agree. I think he had his best game as a Vol, and I think this is something, not that he lacks confidence, but is a confidence builder to go into the spring and certainly into the fall. But without the big wide receivers in this, Brew McCoy was fantastic. Squirrel White really stepped up in this for 9 for 108 and a touchdown. That's a young man that's going to be counted on in the future too.
Saw him coming. He, for whatever reason, and this is scheme wise, and it's certainly intentional. Coach Heupel simply does not play many offensive players. There were many games this year, big ball games, that he only played 14 or 15 offensive players, and that included 3 wide receivers and maybe a 4th with Keaton. So Squirrel White has shown the ability to do that. Practice field, they've had him back on punts some, kickoff returns. He is a talented player. He got his opportunity because another young man that had to soak a couple of years who had great talent, Jalen Hyatt, had a breakout year this year. So you put Brew McCoy. What has happened the first 2 years? Coach Heupel's been there on offense. He's had a receiver in the first one in Cedric Tillman, who had exhibited talent but had a big year that first year. Then Jalen Hyatt this year had as good a year, probably the best year any Tennessee receiver ever, really. And we've had a bunch of number 1 draft choices up there. And I think now that's probably Squirrel White's mantle. He was ready to play. He could have played this year more, but they opted not to do that. But you saw what he has. He's that slot receiver that gives every defense problems. Red, I know you and I talk to Coach Mack a lot. Coach Mack's an old secondary coach too, like I am, and a defensive coordinator. A slot receiver that you can move around gives defenses so many problems because who do you match up with him? You can't put a cornerback on him. You can't put a linebacker on him. Sometimes you can't put a strong safety on him. So, or a nickelback. Who do you put on him? And Squirrel White has shown that ability. I expect him to have if healthy, a huge year. He's a different type of receiver than Hyatt. He's a little smaller, but he's one of those guys you get the ball to on a 5-yard crossing route or a 5-yard stop route. It's going to take it all the way to the end zone. So you got Keaton coming back, but the one guy that I expect to have a huge year next year is Brew McCoy because he is a big physical receiver. Made, I think, the biggest catch of the year for this football team on that last catch against Alabama. That was a difficult catch. He was being hit, but he physically handled that ball and handled that situation. I expect him to have a big year next year. I'm glad he's coming back. He could have left. I think probably would have gotten drafted. But with what Coach Heupel does and has shown that he will do, he will pick that one receiver. They'll earn it, but he'll pick that one receiver. Again, it was Tillman, then Hyatt, and I think Brew McCoy's year is coming next year.
Well, and Milton also had kind of the luxury of playing with guys that he had played with all season. I know Jalen Hyatt didn't play, Cedric Tillman didn't play, but those weren't the guys that Milton had been sharing the field with. So, Coach, not only did he already have that continuity going into this game, but those are his guys next season as well. So Tennessee fans kind of got a sneak peek of what this offense is going to look like. But I wanted to ask you, Coach, specifically what parts of Milton's game were worked on throughout bowl preparation. I know for fans, it's the overthrows, right? The rocket arm, that they want to see that dialed back. But for this coaching staff, what did they really hone in on in the lead up to the Orange Bowl that they might even still be working on today and moving forward? And how did you see that play out in the game?
Well, the awareness and running this offense. This offense is it's not a difficult offense to run from a structural standpoint because really, if you break this offense down, they don't do a lot of stuff. You know, they got a couple of run plays they run. They got maybe 6 or 7 different routes that they run. But what is important is the tempo that they go at makes a quarterback be aware of all the situations because you're not able to call pass protections when you're signaling in plays and running every 10 seconds. So that's up to the quarterback. I think they wanted to see that. He has exhibited that. And you're right about him being with the player. You know, the way that Tennessee college practices are different than pro practices. We talk so much about pros, about how the number one quarterback, you know, Ryan Tannehill got 90% of the snaps in practice, maybe 95%. In college, because you're running 2 teams, you get the same number of snaps in practice most of the time, at least 40% of them, but you do it with the second team. And sometimes you're going down throwing pass routes against the defense, number one defense. So I think what they wanted to see, I think they had a great idea. And when I say they, there's only one guy that matters in the passing game up there. That's Coach Heupel. And he is outstanding. I've probably watched 24 practices up there over the last couple of years. The time that he personally and Joey Halsey, who's the quarterback coach, spends on technique, just working with receivers. Just real quickly, I've been to a lot of practice. I've been involved in a lot of practice. I've never seen a offense that throws more individual pass routes, maybe 20 minutes a day just against air, and working on your step, along with the receiver. So I think that's what they wanted to see. And then his awareness. And listen, it's all going to get down to, just like it did with Hendon and every other quarterback, how do you play when you're playing against the teams that Tennessee has to play against and beat if they're going to be at the championship level? And that you only find that out watching him play in a ball game. And he's had a couple of good opportunities here at the end, and this game, Clemson, it has to give Joe Milton a lot of confidence going into this spring practice workouts, all those things. Plus, his teammates saw that too. So these are just. I don't think Tennessee could be in a better position going in to the spring for next fall. Now, as far as another quarterback, I don't care who it is. I don't know any head football coach is going to want to put a true freshman out there. I don't care if he came in early or not or what it was. Again, I'll go back to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning played early for one reason, because of an injury. So I think this is Joe Milton's team and the offensive team, and I think everybody knows it up there.
Doug, let's flip to the defense for a moment, because we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the performance that they had out on that field for 101 snaps. And as you mentioned, the true freshman, Cade Klubnik, they gave him fits all night. Will Shipley got some of what he does well and got that in there, but I thought the defense held he and Maffa in check. This defense, and to me, it was led by Aaron Beasley. He was fantastic in this. No Jeremy Banks, so insert Aaron Beasley in this. What was your impressions and takeaways of this Vols defense that I thought held in there, bent, did not break, and really made a difference?
Well, let's talk about Aaron Beasley first. He reminds me of a couple of players we had on defense when I was up at Tennessee. Chris White comes to mind, that for about 3 years there really didn't do hardly anything. And then his senior year was an All-American. Beasley coming into this year, after watching him last year, I thought he was a below-average linebacker at the best. He had a tremendous year this year. If you look at every play and every game, was by far the best defender on the team this year, and he continued that. He has just improved so very, very much. You know, he's not as big as you'd like. Maybe not quite as fast as you'd like, but he is a tremendous linebacker right now, and I would think the clear leader of this defense going in. The problems, and Tennessee's had them for 2 years. They've had them more than 2 years, but Coach Heupel's 2 years. Athletically in the secondary, we are average at best in this league, and I'm talking about athletically. We probably don't have enough speed back there. That's an area they've really been working on. They've got a lot of, I think, 5 defenders that are coming in. Now, again, they're freshmen. They're not going to play much next year. But the thing in this ball game was they tackled so much better. I think a lot of that was because they were in better position to tackle. We got there are several of these guys, McCullough being one of them. I think the Walker youngster who transferred in is going to be a really good player at safety. The cornerback were kind of iffy out there because of just some guys that are kind of up and down, not very consistent. But they did play better in this ballgame without question. Now, the thing that I think these coaches will sit back and look at, and that I've sat back and looked at, what was Clemson's, they didn't want to play a freshman quarterback either. And by the way, you're exactly right. Tim Banks took advantage. They always fleshed him out to his right, if you noticed that.
Yep.
And he didn't play real well, but he's a freshman. Listen, that kid's any freshman come in and play in a game like that, I think would be under a lot of pressure. But Tennessee played very well. And again, the thing coming out of that ball game, and I think I've discussed it with you guys, and I've discussed it on air. What happened in this ball game to me really didn't make any difference. It really didn't. Did I want to see him win? Yes. But the 10-game regular season, getting Tennessee back to the top, 10, 20% of the Southeastern Conference, not to mention nationally, that was the main thing. But they gave it again. They should come out of this ball game with a lot of confidence. Tennessee returns a ton of players. Only in this ball game, 3 players on offense will not be back, and 3 on defense won't be back unless a couple of. There's still, I think, a chance that maybe a player or 2 might transfer out, which, by the way, goes, I think, through January 18th. These players still have an opportunity to hit the transfer portal.
Coach Doug Mathews with us on 104.5 The Zone. Finally, Coach, but before we let you go, and we really appreciate you spending part of your January 2nd with us, play calling on offense. Joey Halsley, the quarterback's coach, called the plays in this game. Curious to see if you noticed any tendencies different from Alex Golish, who's now the head coach at South Florida, and Halsley appears to be the guy heading into 2023.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Let me first clear up this for anybody out there, Tennessee fan listening. Josh Heupel did not call the plays this year, all right? I don't know that he did last year. He did not call the plays this year. Alex Golish called the plays. Now, certainly game planning and during the ball game, Coach Heupel, you could see him he was talking to Alex Golish. That's who he was talking to, and but he was not calling plays. So for any Tennessee fan that thinks that Josh Heupel is still calling the plays, they're incorrect, and they were incorrect in this ball game overall. Now, I do think he called a little bit of this ball game, but it's pretty clear to me. This hasn't been stated yet, but it's pretty clear to me that Joey Halsey, if he's at Tennessee, which I'm assuming he will be calling the plays next year. What I expect to happen is, and again, this is just I think it's an educated opinion, but it's an opinion. I think Coach Heupel will fairly quickly have named co-coordinators. I think Coach Ellerby will be a co-coordinator, the offensive line coach, and I think Coach Halsey will be a co-coordinator. What he'll do with that extra position, I do not know. But going into this, and I can tell you this from talking, I know a couple of quarterbacks that Tennessee is recruiting for the future. Both of them have been told, well, one of them has been told that Joey Halsey will be calling the plays next year. And he was certainly greatly involved. I don't know that he called every single play in this bowl game. But again, I think it's pretty clear if you know what Coach Heupel does that Coach Halsey is going to be the guy calling the plays. I do expect there to be co-coordinators, though, which is probably a pretty good idea right now.
There you go. Glenn Ellerby, offensive line coach, as a co-offensive coordinator alongside Joey Halsey in 2023. Coach Doug Mathews, thanks so much for the time. Happy New Year to you, sir, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Same here. Appreciate you guys, and it's always good to talk football, no matter whether it's around a cup of coffee or you're on the airways. So,
amen to that, brother. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to y'all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Doug Mathews, co-host of Coach to Coach, alongside Coach Dave McGinnis, with us on 104.5 The Zone. Ray, you brought up the defensive performance. You want to talk about bend, don't break. Clemson racked up 484 yards of total offense in that game, 1 touchdown to show for it. They were inside the Tennessee 35-yard line 9 times and went 2 for 4 in the red zone.
Isn't that crazy? And Aaron Beasley, by the way, 12 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1 pass breakup, 1 interception. Mighty fine game at a big stage for a guy that needed to step forward in that with no Jeremy Banks. And listen, and Aaron Beasley, his dad was a good ball player. He gave the Titans fits as a Jacksonville Jaguar all those years ago when I first started covering the Titans. But yeah, what a performance by this defense. I mean, to think about it, to be out there for 101 snaps and live to tell about it. And, yeah, I mean, the way they game planned against Cade Klubnik And I felt bad for the kid to a point because I'm like, God, he's just getting killed. But, they had to play him. I mean, that's the way it ended up. And so there we are. But it was a big night for the Vols and what became the precursor of a great weekend of college football.
No doubt. And that will continue today. We've got kickoff coming up at 11 of the ReliaQuest Bowl, the artist formerly known as the Outback Bowl, with Mississippi State taking on Illinois. Some great tributes going on for the late Mike Leach as they are fittingly playing at Raymond James Stadium, where there is a pirate ship behind an end zone, a memorial set up for Coach Leach there. And I don't know if you've seen these Mississippi State helmets.
They are fantastic and very fitting.
Yeah, with the pirate flag on the side. So come watch the games with us. We are live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill all day from now until 6 o'clock. Swing by, say hi, grab some great food, the coldest beer in Nashville, grab a Bushwhacker, and watch all the bowl games. While you're here, try Oil Fire Whiskey. You will like it. She will love it. And register to win great prizes. Get this. Scoreboard is giving away a Super Bowl tailgate package. If you win, you'll have your own private viewing party for 20 of your closest family and friends.
Yes, sir.
Right here at Scoreboard. The thing is, you have to be here to enter to win. So come see us on Music Valley Drive. We are near Opry Mills. Again, broadcasting live until 6 o'clock. Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan with you until 1. And we just finished talking about the Orange Bowl. The Vols' final performance of the year kind of set the stage for what will be a really interesting offseason for Tennessee football. What's the next step for this program after so many milestones achieved in 2022? We'll get into it. Coming up next, live from Scoreboard on 104.5 The Zone. lot of things about Tennessee's 2022 season that if you told Vols fans last summer what happened, there is no way they would believe you. But Josh Heupel brought up one after the game, the 31-14 Orange Bowl victory over Clemson on Friday, that I think sounded even more impossible just a few months ago. Welcome in. We are live at Scoreboard Bar and Grill on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica alongside Rhett Bryan, Jonathan Schaefer, our producer, hanging out until 6 o'clock watching all the college football bowl game action. Rhett Bryan, Tennessee hits the 11-win mark with that win against Clemson. That's the first time that's happened since 2001. They started 8-0 for the first time since 98. They went undefeated in Neyland Stadium for the first time since 98. Potential top 5 finish for the first time since 2001, beating Bama for the first time since 06, breaking records on offense. We can go on. But the one that really sticks out, Josh Heupel just kind of casually said at the postgame presser on Friday, he goes, I think we've beaten 3 of the last 4 national champions this season.
I heard him say that, too.
And he's right.
He is right.
Tennessee played each of the last 4 national champions. They beat LSU, they beat Alabama, and they beat Clemson while losing to Georgia. I couldn't tell you the last time Tennessee beat one team that had won the national title within the last 4 years.
No, if I don't know who that is. I couldn't off the top of my head either. But the thing about what he has done in year 2 is obviously Hendon Hooker was such a big part of that on offense. And they did enough to put up points early on to just basically outscore their opponents while the defense, would have bend and maybe break a little bit moments. But for me, I think the biggest thing, and Doug Mathews said it in our last segment. Please go back to Zone Podcast to hear that, our visit with him. The confidence that it builds for Joe Milton and the confidence it builds for all these guys that are returning. The other thing I think is going to be a dividend or a residual fact out of this is that I think with the transfer portal, you're going to get some transfer portal guys to help you on defense to help kind of bolster that side of the ball. If they can get some help in the secondary and continue to produce what they do at the middle and the front levels of that defensive front, they could be really dangerous because they clearly have an offense that would run a defense ragged. So if they can have something to get them off the opposing offense off the field, get them 3 and out or whatever, then you're talking about a super dangerous combination. I think that's what Vols fans are looking for in 2023, or at least that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that appears to be that next step, right? Because the gap from Tennessee, between Tennessee and the top of college football and recruiting, is still substantial. Tennessee finished with a top 10 class this season, but when you look at what Alabama hauled in, it kind of pales in comparison.
Absolutely.
I mean, the difference between having the first, second, and third best recruiting class in the country and the 9th and 10th best is substantial. So Tennessee was able to kind of overcome that edge several times throughout the course of this season due to the nature of the offense and guys like Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and the seasons that they had. So my question is, as we start to look ahead at the Josh Heupel era at Tennessee, is kind of what comes first? That Tennessee starts to recruit at the level of an Alabama or a Georgia, or Tennessee is able to get over that hump of getting into the playoff with a collection of talent kind of similar to what they have now, simply with coaching?
Certainly that is possible, the latter example you bring up, because of what we have seen this Vols team do in 2022 and finish out the year the way they did with that Orange Bowl victory. But it's going to need – I just think you're going to need more. You're going to need some bolstering. You're going to need some talent on the other side of that ball to get you where you need to go because, my goodness, I mean, when you think about the Alabamans, just all of the top teams in college football that have a top stellar recruiting class every single year, they're just queuing them one after the other. You're going to need to get a notch north of where you are in recruiting to kind of make that happen. But winning breeds success in this. I mean, listen, what he has done, and I'm going to use a real estate term here. Everybody wants to up the curb appeal of a house so that it brings top dollar on the market. And, of course, in this market, that doesn't really matter what you do. But if you've got nice landscaping and the appeal visually is there, that's what he's done in 2 years. And so I think you're going to get some defensive prospects and just prospects overall that maybe tilted a different direction and wouldn't have gone to Tennessee a year or two ago because the curb appeal of the house is getting in order, and maybe they see a trajectory of, man, you know what? They beat 3 of the 4 last national champions. They won in the Orange Bowl. Seems like their path is going upward, not in a different direction. And, that kind of Clemson seems like it's going to be, although they get recruits out the wazoo too. But I think that you're going to get some recruits that way.
Well, I'll say one thing. Tennessee getting back to the level they want to be at is certainly not a good sign for Clemson, who has capitalized on Tennessee being down for years. When you look at guys like
territory. Yeah.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence grew up a Tennessee fan. Trevor Etienne, Travis Etienne,
yeah.
Trevor playing for Florida. His older brother, Travis Etienne, grew up a Tennessee fan.
Yeah.
I mean, Dabo Swinney grabbed T. Higgins out of East Tennessee. He grabbed Amari Rodgers out of East Tennessee.
That's right.
So it's interesting kind of how Tennessee and Clemson got matched up in this bowl game when those two programs Clemson's certainly been able to build off of Tennessee's failures.
And maybe that's where it begins, Luke, is that you get better recruiting results out of your own home native state and territory. And then you start to mine out of other places that you hadn't gotten in a while because you're having upper double-digit success in wins.
615-737-1045 for you to join the conversation. What's your expectation for Tennessee in 2023? Or what should be the expectation, do you think, for Tennessee football next season after what we saw on Friday night?
Well, I mean, you heard Doug Mathews talk about there's not a lot of guys leaving this team. And yes, there's some there'll probably be a transfer portal or two, but, you got guys declaring for the draft and whatnot. I think the expectation now is that you are in that first college football playoff poll when it comes out, and you stay in it and you play for it. I think that's the expectation in 2023 is that you've got 2 years to build off of here. And if you get the right guys on defense in this, because I think Joe Milton, if he continues to play like he did the other night, because I don't know that I've ever seen an arm like his. And the thing about him is your coaches talk about they have to have the touch. He can throw it a mile, but can he hit the broadside of a barn?
Yeah.
Well, he started making plays the other night that leads me to think he can move into a more of elite quarterback status with that cannon. He can make all the throws, but can he hit the target? And he is just starting to hit those targets. If he can do that with a Brew McCoy, like Doug Mathews says, with Squirrel White, with all these guys they have on offense, and they can bolster up the defense, I think the expectation is that you could see them in a college football playoff situation.
Milton, 19 of 28, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers.
Yep.
And we can get a little more into his game coming up, and also the college football playoff craziness that we saw on Saturday night. But we want to hear from you, 615-737-1045. What is your expectation for Tennessee football in year 3 of Josh Heupel in 2023? Broadcasting live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill, Lucas Panzica and Rhett Bryan with you on 104.5 The Zone. Happy New Year, Nashville. We are live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill, which is open for business, moments away from kickoff in the ReliaQuest Bowl at Raymond James Stadium, Mississippi State, taking on Illinois. Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan with you today. It is the Buck Reising Show. Buck Reising's not here, which is great because we have so much to get into. Jonathan Schaefer producing back at Network Control.
The best producer in the world.
Yes.
The world, Craig.
I don't know.
world.
I don't know that we've used that on this show. So I'm glad Schaefer could grace this show with that Drops presence because it is fantastic. Is there a human on planet Earth right now that is not an Illinois Fighting Illini fan rooting for Illinois?
No, because of the sudden passing of one Mike Leach, the Pirate. I would say the answer to that is absolutely no.
Yeah, Mississippi State with head coach Zach Arnett got the interim tag when Leach was hospitalized and then got the role officially after the tragic passing of Mike Leach. That game about to kick off. A few more bowl games going on today, including the Rose Bowl later on this afternoon, and we'll still be here for that. 3HL will be here until 6 o'clock. Blaine and Mickey before that. So swing by Scoreboard Bar and Grill, say hi, grab some delicious food, the coldest beer in Nashville, watch all the bowl games, and while you're here, try Oil Fire Whiskey. You will like it. She will love it, and register to win great prizes. We've been mentioning this today. Scoreboard is giving away a Super Bowl tailgate package where if you win, you will have your own private viewing party with 20 of your closest family and friends for the Super Bowl. You just got to be here to sign up. So come hang out, watch some games, and enter for your chance to win. We need to talk about all of the college football playoff craziness from Saturday night, but taking your call, 615-737-1045, on the expectation for Tennessee football in 2023, based on what you saw from Joe Milton and this offense on Friday, Rhett. The biggest thing going in was about the overthrows, right? It's always going to be with Milton. And every big sample size we've seen from him, it's been the same thing. Guys are running open on the 20, 30-yard line, and the ball's landing on the turf 10 yards ahead of them.
I know. And that just speaks to his arm strength. But he dialed it back and got it a little more refined for this game. I think you and I both agree it's his best game as of all.
The one play that I feel like really showed what they were trying to work on with Milton was the deep ball touchdown to Ramel Keaton that put Tennessee up by a couple of scores and ultimately is probably what iced the game. Putting air under that ball so the wide receiver can track it. That's something that we haven't seen from Joe Milton when he's throwing these 60-yard deep balls on a frozen rope where if it's not dead on the money, it's not going to be a complete pass. So to put the air under that ball, allowing the receiver to track it a little bit, I think is something that they've really worked on. And you saw that to Ramel Keaton on that touchdown pass. But, I mean, were there some things that you felt like he could build off of that's not just throwing the football? For me, I feel like the way he moves, it's not as fluid as when you see a Hendon Hooker in the pocket. The way he runs
different
the ball.
guys. Yeah. I mean, this guy's a huge dude. What is he, 6'5", 240?
Yeah, he looks like a defensive end.
He is in quarterback stature from a college perspective going into a pro perspective. He has a body frame and size like a Dante Culpepper. I'm trying to think who else would be like that. But Culpepper was a huge dude who could, he could move around a little bit. But, yeah, the difference.
I mean, Cam Newton?
Yeah, there's some of that there. But Hendon Hooker had such a better operational skills to operate this offense in terms of, just getting the yardage when he needed to pull the ball down and get it done. And, I'm not saying Joe Milton couldn't because he pulled the ball down a couple of times and got positive yardage, but they're just different guys. That, for anybody that's looking for Hendon Hooker part 2, that's not the answer here because, Bazooka Joe, as they call him, his strength is literally in his arm. I mean, he's got one of the best arms in terms of strength. I mean, there's no telling. How far can he throw a ball? Do we know?
Well, Tennessee football.
They claim 100 yards, don't they?
They put out the video of him throwing the orange in the lead up to the Orange Bowl, and he got that thing about 110 yards, and the way it exploded when it hit the ground.
Yeah.
I want to see that with a football. Like, I just want to see leather everywhere with Milton throwing a ball 80 yards.
Make a football explode.
Tennessee could literally line up and throw a Hail Mary from the 30 if they wanted to. with Joe Milton at quarterback. Does that mean he's going to win them 11 games again next year? I don't know, but,
right.
but that is true.
Well, if he's got the touch, though, if he can hit the target and acquiesce the strength to make it there, you could see a lot of deep scores with this team in 2023. But I keep thinking about what Doug Mathews said last hour about what a confidence builder this is for a young man like him. And not that he lacks confidence. It's just when you go out and you do it well and, you don't have many mistakes. I mean, you didn't have any interceptions. In fact, they didn't turn the ball over, right?
No turnovers.
So, I mean, from that aspect, and his percentage of completion was good. He just seemed like he's maybe that, we haven't seen a huge sample size from him. I mean, obviously, he started for how many games 2 years ago? What did he start, the first 3 or 4 games?
He started the first 2, and then he was injured at halftime of the Pittsburgh game.
That's right.
That forced Hooker to come in, and they never looked back.
Yeah, and that was where the overthrow stuff was really highlighted because Hendon started coming in there and dialing things up with not a lot of mistakes in this, and there we are. And, and maybe that's something mentally that Joe Milton had to get around in this game, and maybe that helped him because it was the same story when he was at Michigan. He was behind a guy or two. Same thing here with the Vols as he had won the job but then lost the job and now has the job again.
So Tennessee will look to continue on a path that finds themselves in the college football playoff. Ultimately, that is the goal, to be a part of the craziness that is the playoff. And my goodness, on Saturday, was it insane, Rhett? Between Fiesta Bowl and Peach Bowl, which of these 2 games delivered more, you think? What was the better game? What entertained you more on Saturday night?
Well, I'll tell you, I really enjoyed the TCU-Michigan Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl. And I think it's just because everyone had kind of resigned to the fact that TCU was going to be exposed and, that Max Duggan wanted to be able to do what he normally does.
The physicality, Rhett. They couldn't overcome the physicality from that Michigan front.
Right. And Michigan, made it interesting for a little bit. But, I mean, with the turnovers, J.J. McCarthy just, there were moments he just gave it away in this. But I think once TCU got up in score separation, it allowed them to do some of the things that they do well in a faster pace express type offense, kind of like what we see with Tennessee. But Max Duggan, 57 yards on the ground. That's not normally what he does. Now, he did have 2 scores in that. But DeMercado lit him up. 100.5 and a score in that. Now, a big chunk of that was the 69-yard run that he had. But I just think everyone had resigned to the fact that Michigan was the superior team in this. And obviously, they were ranked ahead of them. They had absolutely pantsed Ohio State in the battle that is the Big Ten every year. And this was going to be the year they were going to go play for a national championship. But the Horned Frogs, they were impressive. The way they just went out, they just seemed like they wanted it more to me. And the way they executed it. But that one was super entertaining. And then, Stetson Bennett did his best to try to give it away a couple of times for Georgia in the Peach Bowl. But I enjoyed that one as well.
They never trailed TCU.
No.
Michigan on the first play from scrimmage, big run. Donovan Edwards breaks free. Looks like he's going to house it. He gets taken down. And you just thought, all right, the route is on. From play number 1, and then TCU stops Michigan. Michigan tries the Philly special. It doesn't work.
Right.
And then TCU goes on to take leads of 21-3, 35-16, 41-22, and 51-38 throughout that ball game. And Michigan kept coming back. They kept making it interesting.
But the TCU defense got stops where they needed them.
Right. On
they
the goal
got them
line.
Goal line stand.
In the red zone.
Right.
Now, I think that Michigan fans will have some claims about bad officiating early on with the touchdown that was overturned, and then late that targeting call that they review at the end there. I thought surely if you're going to review that for targeting, to me that looked like targeting. I don't know that Michigan was going to go down and score with 20 seconds or whatever was left.
Right.
But I know Michigan fans are going to have gripes with that. But the most impressive thing against the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line that Michigan has, best offensive line in the country 2 years running, is TCU didn't lose that physical battle that everybody said, well, if it comes down to that, they're toast. They outrushed Michigan 263 to 186.
Yeah.
They sacked McCarthy 4 times.
Right.
I mean, the Frogs came to play. I wish we had a Coach Matt Cam during that game. I want to watch this national championship game with Coach Mack. Can we make that happen? Can we have a Coach Mack watch party next Monday night between TCU and Georgia?
That might become a thing. We need to talk. I will conference with the head coach of Titans Radio and see what's up with that. And of course, who knows? He may be watching it with some dignitary. He knows everybody in the world. He may be watching it with the prime minister of, I don't know. Anyway, I don't have a good joke there, but he knows everybody in the world. But, yeah, he's got to be a happy camper.
Well, the last 2 seasons of college football have us kind of reframing what we think is possible in this sport. I mean, last season, Cincinnati gets into the playoff as a group of 5 team.
Yes.
Something that wasn't supposed to be possible.
Yes.
And then this season, TCU, a team that was 5-7 in 2021, under a first-year head coach in Sonny Dykes, outside the top 30 in the talent composite when you look at recruiting rankings over the last few years and who they have on their roster, they're playing for a national championship on Monday. That's not supposed to happen.
Frog.
It's not supposed to be possible.
Frog.
Jonathan Schaefer. So I don't know how TCU is going to be able to handle Georgia in the national championship.
But we said that about Michigan, too.
Exactly. So
now, listen, Georgia's Georgia. I get that. But listen, I'm going to say this. If Stetson Bennett plays like he did the other night, TCU Frogs have a chance, a real chance.
Let's get into Stetson Bennett's performance on the other side. And also, Jim Harbaugh, after winning back-to-back Big Ten titles with Michigan, you imagine he's going to get some phone calls this offseason. Let's talk about where some of those phone calls in the NFL might come from. Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan hanging out live at Scoreboard Bar and Grill on 104.5 The Zone.
Frog.
Ramon, Kayla,
Welcome back live at Scoreboard Bar and Grill on Music Valley Drive. Right next door to Opry Mills. Come and see us. Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan with you until 1 o'clock on 104.5 The Zone. We will be here until 6 o'clock. Blaine and Mickey to follow, 3HL after that to talk about a massive football weekend with the playoff ringing in the new year emphatically.
We will take you up to the Mike Vrabel show tonight at 6. Mike Vrabel press conference here at the top of the hour.
And we will carry that live as the Titans will play Saturday night football in Jacksonville.
TIAA Bank Field.
TIAA Bank Field, the home of the Gator Bowl, which was also electric, by the way.
Yes, it
last
was.
Friday.
Sucks.
What name?
TIAA Bank or whatever it is.
Yep.
Is that the lamest NFL stadium name in the league?
Acrisure is it now.
Acrisure
Yeah.
is by far the
Yeah.
worst.
Simply because of what it's replacing in the iconic Heinz Field.
And no ketchup bottle in the red zone.
Yeah, and nobody knows what Acrisure is.
I have no clue.
No. Jonathan Schaefer, our producer.
I don't know what it is.
Lucas Oil Stadium. Lucas Oil Stadium. I like that name because
that's fine.
because my name's in there. But
Hey, now.
Geez. Hey, thanks, Buck.
there is another name. That was a very Buck thing to do, wasn't it? Damn, Schaefer. Thank you for checking me on that. There is another name that is posted up inside Lucas Oil Stadium on their Ring of Honor, so to speak.
Yes.
That name is Jim Harbaugh,
Yes.
who played some of his best NFL football at Lucas Oil Stadium.
In the 1994 season.
Jim Harbaugh just won back-to-back Big Ten titles with Michigan, got them to the college football playoff semifinal in both years. This year felt different as far as expectation goes for Michigan. Last year was much more of a happy-to-be-here vibe when they got trounced by Georgia in the semifinal. But this was kind of an expectation to get to and win the national championship, and yet they lost to a team in TCU that does not have the talent profile that Michigan does.
All you had to do was listen to the broadcast. I mean, it was all about Michigan. Totally. I mean, and Vegas had them at a 7.5 point favorite.
Yep.
And by the way, what was the over-under, I think, was 50.
It was high, and
They blew that
It got
apart.
shattered, yeah, both
I mean,
games.
golly.
Do you think Jim Harbaugh fields some calls this offseason from the NFL?
Yes, I would. I would think so. So we have 3 in-season firings already in the NFL, and Matt Rule with the Carolina Panthers. I believe he was first. Then Frank Reich with the Indianapolis Colts, as you mentioned, and I think the Titans kind of broke that situation open. And then recently Nathaniel Hackett, after not even one and done, part of one and done with the Denver Broncos. There were 8 head coaching changes in 2022, 7 in the season prior to that. I don't know if there'll be that many on Black Friday Black Monday next week around the league. We'll see, because sometimes there's always one that pops up that is unexpected.
Well, we're coming off a year of massive coaching turnover in the
Right,
NFL.
8 different coaches, but there's 3 openings right there. Now, let me say this about the Carolina Panthers. Steve Wilks, I believe he's won that job permanently.
He's 5-5.
He has absolutely turned that thing around. That was a dumpster fire. And I think he deserves a chance to be the head coach permanently with that, because if you talk to people around the league, they will tell you that he was done unfairly in his 1 year in Arizona before they hired Cliff Kingsbury. And I think he retains this job. I think David Tepper, the owner, makes that happen. So technically right now there's 2 openings if you look at it that way, and that's the Colts and the Broncos.
Jeff Saturday has lost his last 5 as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts after.
The Indianapolis Colts.
There it is.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I was on Ramon, Kayla, and Will back a few weeks ago, and it was just a complete Freudian slip.
The Indianapolis Colts.
Exactly.
Well, they are living up to that name. They got absolutely trounced in Week 17. Oh, my goodness. What a meltdown performance by the Colts, 38-10. This game never had a prayer to be close. The New York Giants clinch a playoff berth with that win. But, I mean, there's noise about Jeff Saturday maybe staying on as the head coach.
Well, personally, I hope he does.
Yeah, I'm sure
mean, that's good for Titans,
How
right?
about a Jeff Saturday, Will Levis combo in Indianapolis
Hey,
next year?
let's go.
I think just about anybody
Sure.
outside of
the
Indy would
thing
take
is,
it.
I think Jim Irsay is just silly enough to do something like that. And here's the other thing. Now, while we were talking about potential coaching hires and changes, let's try this one on for size. speaking about coming out of left field and one that is unexpected, because usually there is one every offseason. What if that Mike McCarthy fails to take the Dallas Cowboys to the Super Bowl, and he gives the New Orleans Saints a number 1 draft pick to retain the rights of a guy who'd spent time there before and Sean Payton many, many years ago? I think he is crazy enough as an owner and as a general manager of that. He loves that team and that franchise to a fault. That's his baby. What if he did that? What if he said, okay, Mike McCarthy, you've had 2 12-win seasons, but toodaloo? That could happen.
I mean, that wouldn't really shock anybody, would it?
It could happen.
If Mike McCarthy is no longer the head coach of the Cowboys, if they do not win the Super Bowl.
Right. And listen, based on what I saw and what you saw last Thursday night, this Cowboys team can go pretty deep in this.
Yeah.
I really can. I think their biggest stumbling block is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles, and that depends on Jalen Hurts and his health in this thing. I mean, I have marveled at how they have used both of their running backs well all season in Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott. And that offensive line, they've had issues there with injuries and have just bolstered that and swapped guys in different places. They did the other night and did really well. If Dak Prescott, he's the X factor in this to me. If he doesn't turn the ball over a lot in the playoffs, this team could go pretty far.
We'll be able to get into some of these playoff scenarios that cleared up a bit yesterday and will continue to do so tonight. Massive Monday Night Football game in the AFC between Bills and Bengals. But Jim Harbaugh coming up short in the playoff for the second consecutive year. It'll be really interesting to see what that looks like for him as far as the type of calls he's going to get. Now, the narrative around him is going to be much more positive than it had been in the years leading up to the 2021 season at Michigan. But I'm really curious, Rhett, what the conversation in sports talk radio and around water coolers in Columbus, Ohio is going to be like this offseason, because Ohio State came into this playoff semifinal a wounded animal going into the Georgia game. And if they had just gotten run off the field, I mean, there would have been shouts to fire Ryan Day. There just would have. You can count on 2 hands the amount of games he's lost as the head coach there.
Right.
But there is no question there would have been immense pressure going into next season. But I know they lost, and Ohio State doesn't do moral victories. But, man, they played and coached their butts off in that game, in that loss. Kirby's yelling at us over there, Ohio State fan Kirby.
Well, let me say this, and I think that the place where it changed for them is when Marvin Harrison Jr. got knocked out of that. And let me say something. That kid is going to be a future probably top 5 pick in the league. And he's got the genetics there with Dad,
Yes.
who was really, really good and terrorized the Titans twice a year for a long time. I think that's where the tipping point of this thing changed, because he is such a good young wide receiver for that offense. And you take that out, and I'm not taking anything away from those other young men that are in that group of wide receivers, but that was a big tipping point in my opinion.
That was at the end of the third quarter that he gets lit up in the back of the end zone. And by the way, kudos to Ohio State's medical staff, because Marvin Harrison Jr. was on the sideline wanting to go back in, giving the thumbs up, saying, I'm good, and they held him out.
Not.
They would not let him back in after taking a massive shot at the end of the third quarter. So at that point, he had 5 catches for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns before being knocked out. And once again, Rhett Bryan, the best wide receiver in the game is knocked out against the Georgia Bulldogs.
That's right.
When you look back at the national title game last season when Jamison Williams tears his ACL, and Ohio State, without their 2 best receivers ultimately, because Jackson Smith and Jigba couldn't play, and Marvin Harrison Jr. gets knocked out. And Stetson Bennett just does not play well, played some of his worst football throughout that game until his final 5 pass attempts, where he goes 5 for 5 for 148 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he did his best to give it away there.
He really
at a
did.
point or two. Let me ask you this, too, about him. If you're not a Georgia Bulldogs fan and you're just outside looking in, is there a more polarizing guy at the quarterback position in college football? He just seems like I don't like Stetson Bennett. He just has this air about him.
Manziel Jr., according to
says
Kirby.
Manziel Jr. There's just something off-putting about him to me, and I don't know what it is.
Well, look, his name is Stetson Bennett IV. He sounds like he graduated from MBA.
Well, I mean, that's fair. It's like his Thurston Howell III's grandson.
Lucas has no idea what you're talking about, that reference.
Thurston Howell, I do not know. But
He was the
explain to me, please, who Thurston Howell is.
the old wealthy man on Gilligan's Island.
Oh, okay.
And Lovey.
Stetson Bennett the fourth, Thurston Howell the third. I'm putting those names next to each other because you're right. They sound interchangeable.
Yes.
One is a national championship winning quarterback. Stetson Bennett.
Like this, I feel like the Stetson Bennett that people want is a guy that would be named after a cologne in the 80s when you were wearing fine leathers and fur coat and, with a fur-lined leather jacket and a cowboy hat, and you look like you were a Marlboro man. That's the Stetson Bennett that people want. Instead, they get Thurston Howell III.
There's probably an element of Stetson Bennett fatigue as well because we keep hearing about the story. We get it. He was a walk-on. He went JUCO. He came back. Like, it's a great story.
It is a great story.
But Stetson Bennett's performance is not going to be what's remembered from this game. In my mind, Rhett, what's going to be remembered from this game is the timeout. I think that's what I think it should go down in history as in Georgia football, just the timeout. Kirby Smart calling timeout on 4th and 1. Ohio State's up 38-27, 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They have it 4th and 1 on their own 34. And Kirby Smart, as the ball is being snapped, spots the fake punt coming, and he calls the timeout. The ball snapped. Ohio State converts, but the timeout was taken
and so it does
just
not
before.
stick.
And they end up punting.
And, I mean, he just barely got that side judge's attention to
milliseconds.
be able to call the timeout in front of him.
Yep.
And you're right. That is the moment in that game that stands out by far because you're sitting there going, well, they got it. No, wait a minute. Georgia took a timeout. They don't have it.
Well, and almost immediately after that, then Ohio State has to, of course, punt the ball away. Georgia connects on a 76-yard touchdown to Arian Smith, and that's the turning point.
And then poor Ruggles at the end just hooking the ball wide left.
As
On
the
a,
clock
was that a
strikes
50-yarder, I think?
50-yard field goal attempt at the end to win.
Wow, from the left hash and just hooked the daylights out of it.
Literally as the clock strikes midnight. We said it off the top. That ball passed the upright wide left when Eastern time became midnight and 2022 became 2023 and Georgia moved on to the national championship game.
And somebody else's carriage turned back into a pumpkin.
I saw Kirby Smart earlier today. He was out with the game day guys, and Pat McAfee asked him about that timeout. He said, we've had some fake punts converted on us this season. And I saw the formation. I got the timeout off just in the nick of time. And there is a real argument that Ohio State wins that football game if Kirby Smart does not call that timeout.
Absolutely. No, I said Marvin Harrison Jr., that is ultimately the biggest tipping point. But those two things, I think, collectively show you the final score in Georgia's favor.
And C.J. Stroud in this game, my goodness, 23 of 34, 348 yards, and 4 touchdowns. But when you think about him as a pro prospect, because the next game he plays will be in the NFL, what the biggest knock against him, or one of the biggest knocks against him, has been his mobility. He's not a dual-threat quarterback by any stretch.
Right.
But, man, he impressed in that facet of his game.
And never seemed like the moment was too big for him.
He stepped up
of course,
every time.
you play at Ohio State, you're going to play in some really big games. But, yeah, he never seemed right. In fact, he almost seemed solemn. He had this facial thing where it looked like, you okay, buddy? Did somebody hurt your dog? Or
He looked like he had a point to prove.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And, he is going to be a very interesting prospect in the National Football League.
615-737-1045 if you want to join the conversation. Lucas Panzica with you alongside Rhett Bryan. We are live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill all day until 6. So swing by, say hello, grab some great food. It's starting to smell pretty good in here. The coldest beer in Nashville. Watch all the bowl games. I mean, Bowl Mania, it's the last day you get to do it. If you're looking, one of my favorite things to do is to just watch college football for 7 consecutive hours.
Oh, yeah.
This is literally your last day to get to do that of the 2022 college football season.
And, Lucas, we're in a day and age where it's all spread out now. When I was your age, it was all day long on New Year's Day. I'm talking about there was a 10 a.m. kick Central Time, and it wasn't done till nearly midnight, and I enjoyed every single minute of it all day long. Now you get kind of the best of both worlds. You get the main, you got the college playoff semifinals in the books. You still have some good bowl games matched up today, and then the national championship next Monday. The one thing that's interesting to me is out of the 4 bowl games today, people keep talking about this. The Cotton Bowl is Tulane, who had a great season at 11-2. But Southern Cal's going, how are we playing these dudes? And, of course, their quarterback is going to be another NFL prospect in, Caleb Williams?
Oh, yeah.
But that one is going to be interesting to see just how much of a boat race that ends up being, or does Tulane do the unthinkable? But I would say Southern Cal walks into that and says, hey, listen, we really shouldn't be in this bowl game. We're going to show you that it's not an option.
The motivation meter is a very real thing during bowl season, and that sticks out. Tulane, USC, and the Cotton Bowl kicking off at noon. LSU and Purdue in the Citrus Bowl kicking off at noon. And then, of course, later this afternoon, the Rose Bowl between Utah and USC. Kevin Dyson will be in the house in Pasadena.
Utah and Penn State.
What did I say?
You said USC.
Oh, no, USC.
See, we think they should be there.
USC is not. No, because USC lost in the
Utah
Pac-12
and Penn
championship.
State, which should be a good game.
I think so. I think Utah. After,
so Dr. Dyson will be in Pasadena.
He flew down over the weekend.
Nice.
He will be in the house to watch his Utes.
Yes, sir.
Take on Penn State in the Rose Bowl. And Utah looking to avenge their Rose Bowl loss from a year ago in a shootout against Ohio State. But when we come back, it was a big day in the NFL in Week 17. Several playoff scenarios cleared up a bit. Teams were eliminated. Teams clinched. We'll get into what we saw on Sunday, New Year's Day NFL action. Coming up next, Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan, live from Scoreboard on 104.5 The Zone.
Making it
Clear.
your Titans picks in your home or office. Stream live on the 104.5 The Zone app.
In 3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year, everybody. What better way to ring it in than what we're doing right now? Lucas Panzica with you alongside Rhett Bryan. We are live at Scoreboard Bar and Grill watching as Mississippi State is driving on Illinois in the ReliaQuest Bowl, knocking on the door to take the first lead in this one. A lot going on in Tampa right now to honor the late Mike Leach.
First and goal at the 10-yard line.
Are they going towards the pirate ship, or are they going away from the pirate
Good question.
ship? They're going away from it? Okay, thank you, Joe Hunk. Joe Hunk is here because everybody's here today. Blaine and Mickey coming up next, 3HL until 6 o'clock, live at Scoreboard Bar and Grill on Music Valley Drive. Come watch all the bowl game action with 104.5 The Zone. So the playoff picture starting to clear up a bit. Rhett Bryan, a few teams eliminated in Week 17. A few teams clinching, of course, tonight. Massive Monday night game between Bills and Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
Big game in the context of, and Mississippi State throws a pick at the goal line.
Wow.
You hate to see it. So big game tonight as far as both the AFC 1 seed goes and the AFC North. Because if the Bengals lose tonight, they're playing the Ravens in an AFC North championship game next weekend.
Much like Titans and Jacksonville are going to do on Saturday night.
On Saturday night at 7:15. That is official. But Tom Brady and the Bucs clinched the NFC South.
My goodness, you can say they clinched it all right.
I mean,
45-year-old Tom Brady, I think he's 45. Is he 45?
45.
34 of 45, 432 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks, passer rating 127.3. Mike Evans, 10 catches on 12 targets, 207 and 3 scores. Those two guys were a tag team, just wrecking machine.
And they haven't done that all season.
No.
I mean, that's been a big frustration for Bucs fans this season is Tom Brady and Mike Evans. That connection, especially on the deep ball, just has not been there. And then in their biggest game of the year, it comes out in full force with a 200-yard performance.
Yeah, they're rolling into the playoffs, which, makes you wonder what's it going to be like. Will they be a spoiler for someone in that NFC playoff picture? Because it's always the teams that are hot at the right time.
Speaking of that, the Green Bay Packers find themselves in a win and in scenario. So Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers could very well be in the NFC playoffs a week from today if the Packers can beat the Lions next week.
Now, here's the thing that I find extremely interesting in that is that, did you see the snippet of the press conference of Ron Rivera with the Washington Commanders?
Where he didn't know that a loss would eliminate them?
He didn't know that they could be eliminated.
Right.
And,
which they were.
Yeah. And because they had benched Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz comes in and throws 3 picks, has a passer rating of 2.8.
Oh, God.
And they're on the outside looking in. Plus, they reveal a horrible mascot in Major Tuddy.
Oh, I missed that.
It's a hog with a helmet on. Because they've always talked about the offensive line as the Hogs back in the 80s or 70s and 80s. And they always have those guys that are dressed up in hog outfits with dresses on. So it's Major Tuddy. And it's this big hog with a uniform on. And it wasn't well thought out, in my opinion. And it's like he's Major Tuddy. He doesn't have like a military uniform on or anything because they're supposed to be the Commanders.
The Washington football team did something that wasn't well thought
Exactly.
out.
That's exactly right. And so I think he should be nicknamed Summer Sausage or Bacon or something like that, because it's just a bad look.
They lose 24-10 to the Browns.
So here comes Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and by goodness, they steamrolled the Minnesota Vikings, which I haven't had a whole lot of confidence in all year. They have been it's one of those, it's just you can't figure out, and it's Kirk Cousins does his best Kirk Cousins in places, because it's the same Vikings team that obliterated the Cowboys a few weeks ago, 40-3, and they just, Aaron Rodgers does Aaron Rodgers things, and it's 41-17, and there they are. And so Green Bay and Detroit will be battling each other for the last playoff seed, basically, in the NFC.
And Detroit needs help. They need the Seahawks to lose to the Rams.
Yep.
So if the Seahawks win, the Lions are eliminated regardless of what they do against Green Bay. Green Bay is in a win-and-in scenario. Yeah, 41-17 the final for Green Bay over Minnesota, and it wasn't even that close. I mean, the Vikings scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Junk stuff, yeah.
This game was over at halftime. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady having great weekends. The Eagles, without Jalen Hurts, again, failed to clinch the 1 seed. That's back-to-back losses with Gardner Minshew at the helm. This time a 20-10 performance against the Saints. Not quite the barn burner that it was when Philadelphia went down to Dallas last week. What a great game that the Cowboys come out on top. And Philly now 13-3. And I wonder if the NFC, well, I guess the NFC 1 seed conversation would be a little more entertaining if the Vikings had beaten the Packers yesterday. The Eagles still on a great path to clinch that 1 seed. But the New York Jets eliminated yesterday, and my goodness, the way this season has crashed and burned for the Jets. 23-6 against the Seahawks. It appears that the Zach Wilson era is close to over in New York. Jay Glazer reported last week that they are done with him, despite what Robert Saleh says.
Right, and so I guess we'll just have to see how that comes to fruition or does not, because you hear one thing and you see another. But, yeah, and then the 49ers clinch their division in the battle of the backup quarterbacks against the Las Vegas Raiders. Here you got Brock Purdy, who was one of the stories of the NFL in the last half of this season. And then Jared Stidham is taking over for the benched David Carr, who, by the way, David Carr gone.
Derek Carr.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I still think
people
about
do that all the
David
time.
Derek.
Yeah.
But yet, so Derek Carr has left the team, wiped his social media of all things Raiders, and said, see you later. But Jared Stidham comes in there and puts on a show.
He goes 23 of 34, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks, one in overtime that allowed the Niners to set up the game-winning field goal. Jared Stidham had more yards yesterday than Derek Carr has had in a single game all season.
Wow. That's hard to think about. When you think about all the weapons the Vegas Raiders have, for that to be a thing, wow.
So a lot of playoff clinching scenarios that took place yesterday, and another that will take place Saturday night in Jacksonville. 7:15 kickoff between Titans and Jags, winner take all in the AFC South. Titans head coach Mike Vrabel will step up to the podium to talk about it. Coming up next, Lucas Panzica and Rhett Bryan with you live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill on 104.5 The Zone.
Tighten up.
3HL with Brent Doherty.
Clear.
Slay.
The Titans kick off Saturday night at 7:15 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hello, Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan with you live from Scoreboard on 104.5 The Zone. Happy New Year. Mike Vrabel is at the podium to talk about that AFC South championship game. With the media, we go live to the Titans head coach.
Recovering or treating or whatever they were doing are going to be able to help us this week, and only be able to help us.
Hey,
if
thank
they
you,
play
Schaefer.
well and we execute.
Yeah, but
You out of here?
You know, that
Jackson, sir.
Cool,
comes
thanks.
down to Jacksonville's playing at a high level, and they're playing with a lot of speed and both level, all three phases. So it'll only matter on how we play, but hopefully we've taken advantage of the time.
With the extra time and desire for a different result, do you tweak the approach leading up to the game this week?
No, that's going to be prepare and practice. Maybe try to limit some of the mental errors that we had on defense, take care of the football. Maybe we'll still do ball disruption and ball security. We'll try to have an open field tackling drill. How critical our ability to tackle those players in space. They do an excellent job. Whether that's Agnew in the return game, all those things that we think are important for practice.
You brought it very well with extra time to prepare. Why do you think that is, and are you guys conscious of that?
I don't think that we're necessarily conscious of it. I think we try to do what's best for the football team and use some rest and recovery mentally and physically, and just try to do everything that we can to get them ready for the game, and then try to execute the plan.
You kind of preach that if you go out and win this week, it kind of rights a lot of the wrongs.
Well, I think, I don't know if that's the case. I just want us to be excited. I want us to, hopefully we've saved our best for last, and, that we can be excited coming to work and preparing, and then ultimately going on the road and winning.
Mike, what gives you faith and belief in this team given the injuries and the losing of late?
Well, I just have seen the leadership, Jared. I've seen us compete in too many games. I've seen us, be really, really good, play winning football. But then obviously, we've all seen the things that get you beat that we have to eliminate. So I'm hopeful that all the stuff that we've done, that we think are positive and that would look like winning football, we can continue to do those things, and that by, hopefully meeting and practicing and eliminating some of the things that we just talked about, that'll help us win.
How are they different than maybe the last time you saw them? Are they just doing everything better?
Well, I mean, I think they're scoring a lot of points. I mean, they've averaged, I think, 28 points in the last 6 games. They're turning the ball. The defense is forcing turnovers. They've been opportunistic. They do what they do. The strength of the football team on defense is up front. They apply a lot of pressure. They've turned it over. I think they're third in forced turnovers. The quarterback is distributing the football. Etienne still runs with speed and, has a lot of contact courage going through the hole. And, if you don't get him on the first or second level, it's a track meet.
You need your big money guys to play like it?
Well, we've always said that your best players have to play good for you to win in this league. So I think that would be the case throughout the league.
How significant would winning 3 straight division championships be, especially given all you've gone through?
Well, I think just significant would just be, winning a game that, has a lot on the line. That's a playoff game, and, you win and you get to keep playing and you get to keep coming to work.
You made a decision on the quarterback?
Yeah, Josh will be our quarterback. I've talked to both quarterbacks and let them know that Josh will be our quarterback for this week, and then Malik has to continue to prepare like a starter. I'm fairly confident, Malik's going to, do something to help us win in this football game, and so I just hopeful that he'll, and I know he will, continue to prepare like he has and continue to improve throughout practice.
How was he, I guess, from the minute he came in the building as far as trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible? How have you been impressed maybe with his work ethic?
With Josh? Yeah, I mean, I think he came in right away and has done what a lot of guys have done. Whether you go back to use Dontrell Hilliard. First day that he was here, saw him at 8 o'clock, 8:30, meeting with the special teams after he got done meeting with Tony, to try to get, some of the base offense and formations installed, and then going and meeting with the special teams coaches. And, Josh has done the same thing, put in extra time and studied and, tried to prepare with the game plan and understanding of what to do, especially on a short week last week. So, and he's worked hard here the last couple of days.
How much more can you add to what he's done and what he did Thursday night, given a full week here now?
Well, I think that there'll be some things and that we will try to add, or maybe things that we practiced last week that we didn't run. I think it's just going to be good to have a full week and be able to have a first and second down, a third down, red zone emphasis. That's probably where just haven't been here as much as I think we need to dive into his knowledge of the overall red zone and everything that's going on down there.
How much different is it for the Jaguars having seen him play that game than it was for the Cowboys kind of seeing him blind?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the Jaguars. I'm not sure.
In your experience going against a quarterback who you haven't seen versus one that you had a game on, how much different is it?
I mean, I'm sure that they, studied or watched. I'm sure the Cowboys looked at some film from prior experiences, the limited regular season snaps that Josh had. One game is a little bit, but, I'm sure they're going to be prepared for everything that we could do on first and second and third down.
When you look back at the film, what did you see from Josh that you liked, whether it be operationally or just his play that led to this decision?
Well, I mean, I think that there was, some good decision-making. I thought he was decisive. I thought he did a nice job progressing through when we gave him time. In and around the line of scrimmage and coming out of the huddle and just getting us into the right football play. And, thought he tried to take the opportunity and run with it and lead. And I just think he gives us the best chance right now.
Some coaches, and maybe even you in the past, have maybe waited to make an announcement like that at certain positions for competitive advantage reasons. Why maybe do it today? And
that's just, wanted to have an opportunity to meet with both of those guys and just to let them know. No more, no less.
Trenton started to kind of get back into a groove. He seems to be giving you, a couple of explosive plays a game here since he's returned from the concussion.
Yeah, I mean, he is. He's all, we also have to make sure that, when things are going fast or fatigue sets in, we all want him to play as much as possible, but that we're doing the right things that we're being asked to do within the play, that we're lining up where we need to line up. Just a lot of those things as the volume starts to increase, and certainly understand, how he can affect the game. And it's good to see him have some of those X plays and those catch and runs and his physicality. And, we even alluded to the play down the field, his body control. I thought they grabbed his left arm, and if they wouldn't have grabbed it, I thought he would have come back and made the play. So, seeing some guys maybe drift out of bounds in those instances, it was good to see him, be able to adjust his body, come back, stay in bounds, or even on the catch there at the end of halftime, being able to control his body, stay in bounds and run. And, we just got to, be careful, understand that was a situation that we had talked about in training camp, that comes up when you're in that field goal situation. Like, you're either going to have to score or get out of bounds or get down for me to be able to call timeout. And, and it's just him wanting to go make a play and get as many yards. He's programmed to catch the football and try to be physical and break tackles. And but those are all really positive things. We just have to make sure that, some of the little details and overall understanding is good.
Over the last month or so, Mike, from what you've seen on Trevor Lawrence on film, how good has he been?
Well, he's 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's taking care of the football. He's got a lot of playmakers. He's distributing the football. He's able to extend plays with with his legs or, some of the quarterback design runs. I think that's the thing is he's a big, mobile, athletic quarterback that's, strong in the pocket, but then is able to extend plays and keep his eyes downfield.
How much maybe could the week – it would help a lot of guys, but Derek specifically, how much could the week off have maybe helped him?
Again, it's only going to – we'll have to see how everybody plays and how everybody performs. That's the most important thing. And, if we perform well, then will serve us well. And that's the only thing that matters is what we do this week and how we come in and our attitude and our preparation and then ultimately our performance.
As many games as you guys have won around here over the last few years, and the core group of guys, you've had a handful of these you've had one winning in, you've had first-round games the last couple of years where they haven't performed at their best. What has to be different this week?
Well, I think what has to be different this week is we focus on the guys that are here and maybe not the ones that aren't, that you mentioned too, and some of the core group of guys. We have to continue as guys come in, continue to preach and to teach and explain what wins and what loses in this league, and try to build a foundation, with some of these guys that are kind of coming in and adding, as they add to, playing a lot of football for us. I say that, maybe Andrew Adams, started to figure that out, just using him as an example. And then some other guys that maybe have only been here for a week or two, we have to get them brought up to speed of not just what to do, but, why we're doing it, why we're asking them to do, a certain technique that maybe they didn't do, somewhere else, and that we think is important because, we have history of it working, and we feel like that's what's, best for us and the overall football team. So, just trying to do some things differently. We to start by taking care of the football offensively. That goes without saying. We moved the football. Had 9 explosive gains against the Jaguars the last time. Unfortunately, that all gets masked by four critical turnovers.
With Derek and the fumbles, a lot of those are happening, fighting for extra yards. Like, how do you get him to balance, okay, you do want to fight for the extra yards, you also have to know when the journey's over, in those situations?
Well, I think that's hard because there's so many times the journey's not over. I think that there's, been some good plays. I think he, took a good legal hit, coming back in bounds against the Jaguars. I think the guys they understand that that's probably a really good chance to tackle him is by trying to tackle the ball or hammer the ball, just his size. And we can also, we also have to do a better job. Maybe your block on the backside that doesn't seem like a big deal, until the ball breaks and there's a 10 or 15-yard gain, and there's a guy, it's not the guy that Derek can see. It's not the guy that the guy with the ball can see. It's the guys that they can't see, And so trying to do our best is what we, preach is protecting the football and the guy that has it. And there's only one football, and he's got a responsibility, but we all have a responsibility to try to finish longer than the guy with the ball at a high screen, to do all those things to keep some of those turnovers from happening.
Even with a potential losing record going into the playoffs, why is making the playoffs so important to this organization?
Well, I think it's important just because once you get in, you have a chance. You have a chance. You're in the tournament. We've had, we want to have a consistent program, a consistent winning program. We don't want to be in the situation that we've been in the last, couple weeks. Nobody wants that. But, the reality is that we're playing for, an opportunity to win the division, an opportunity to make the playoffs. So it's winning is the foundation of everything that we do, competitiveness. But it's not okay just to compete and not end up winning. We have to win. And like I said, we can go back and we can look at all these games where, man, and you guys were really competitive, but, we just came up a little bit short. And there's been throughout the last 6 weeks some really, really competitive moments. Unfortunately, not good enough and not consistently enough. So, we'll just have to put it all together this week.
You guys decided for sure on David Long, whether you open a practice window for him?
No, I haven't decided.
I guess So I was just curious about how excited was Josh to get the news, and maybe what's your challenge to Malik to support him and to just keep working?
I mean, Josh isn't an overly excitable person. I think he was ready for the opportunity and is looking forward to it. The message to Malik is to continue to do what he's been doing, which is, continue to study, continue to use the practice reps to his advantage, to help the game slow down for him. When he's out there, that's the most important thing. I wish that we could go, with more speed, during practice these last however many weeks of the season, which we will be able to this week, I feel like. But, the past four to 6 weeks, it's been a lot of jog-throughs, some walk-throughs, some short weeks, whatever it may be. So not only is that, you're trying to get guys to the game, but then now those are some developmental reps that some other guys may not get. So be a big week for him to be able to have some of that speed.
Last week after giving him the news the first time, just for a young guy, how tough is that to have to ping pong like he has?
Well, I mean, I think everybody has to be ready every day that they come to work to try to do what, try to put the team first, to try to continue to improve. And his attitude's been great since he's been here, since I've gotten to know him. So, that's what we're all required to do.
Tape of the first Jacksonville game, the mistakes on defense, what do you think are correctable, and where did you think maybe that you needed to change a little bit of what you guys were doing in that game?
We got put on some short fields. I didn't think we did a very good job of, executing, the 3rd down and 2 that led to, an easy red zone touchdown. I think we have to be ready to go, quicker pace, whether that's coming out of the huddle. Talked about the MAs, finding ways to affect the football, trying to bat some passes maybe at the line of scrimmage, try to, get a fumble, knock a ball loose. I think we learned from the end of the half situation. I think if you look from just 1 week to the next, whether that be from the end of the Jacksonville game to the end of the Chargers game, I think that's something that we all learned. Just trying to make sure that we're conscious of the situation.
What would you like?
I think you just try to take a little bit out of each game, but certainly that game, their ability to catch and run. There were some short plays that turned into long ones. So we'll have to be better there.
Presumably this is the healthiest Jeff and Danico will be side by side since like late October. How much of a difference can that make for?
Well, I mean, again, they'll have to go out and perform, and they'll have to try to do their best to, work within the scheme, work with each other if they're working on a game together, or they're, working in a pass rush combination. But it's going to take everybody. We're going to need their best efforts along with everybody else's.
Mike, you guys found out about when we did last night when the game time would be next Saturday. How did it go logistically from 10 o'clock last night through today and tomorrow, which I guess is probably Wednesday for you?
Yeah, I mean, we were planning on going at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, anyways, with the idea that it was probably going to be Saturday. And then, they let us know, a little bit before they let you guys know, and then kind of go from there.
Are they here today? Are you doing bonus stuff or just
tomorrow? No, they'll be in tomorrow, and I think they'll be rested and excited and ready to start our preparation.
Well, since we've seen Fulton, he got a chance to practice this week.
I hope so.
Coach Peterson said that you guys are still the champs until somebody knocks you off.
That was nice of Doug.
You guys are underdogs in this game. How do you
sure
view
we are.
yourself as compared to how he views you, or he said he viewed you yesterday?
I love Doug. I think he's a friend. He's a great football coach. But I'm just focused on our football team. We have a huge challenge going on the road in a great environment on Saturday night. So, we have to play better. We have to play better more consistently throughout the course of a game in order to win. Thanks, guys.
All right, that is Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel ahead of the AFC South title game. Saturday night, 7:15 kickoff from TIAA Bank Field. We'll break down what he said, start to look ahead to the Jags matchup in the week of practice. Lucas Panzica alongside Rhett Bryan with you until 1 o'clock, live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill on 104.5 The Zone. is the Titans starting quarterback in Jacksonville. You probably already knew that, but Mike Vrabel made it official, speaking with the media just minutes ago. Happy New Year, everyone. We are live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill on Music Valley Drive near Opry Mills. Come hang out with us. Lucas Panzica, Rhett Bryan with you until 1 o'clock, and then we will pass the baton to Blaine and Mickey watching some bowl game action and previewing the AFC South showdown, Titans and Jags in Jacksonville Saturday night at 7:15. So, Rhett, I don't think there was much of a doubt, but Mike Vrabel goes ahead and makes it official. Josh Dobbs, and it kind of dawned on me during that press conference, will be the first time that he actually has a full week of practice as the starting quarterback.
That's correct. And with that in mind, he was asked about how much more offensive plays and packages, kinds of things that he would be have thrown on his plate this week. He said first and second down and red zone will be areas of emphasis in terms of trying to put a little more on his plate going into this game. But, yeah, Josh Dobbs, second consecutive start. And this time for the whole shooting match for the AFC South crown Saturday night at TIAA Bank Field against the Jaguars. I think the other interesting thing from this press conference is he was non-committal on the last return from injured reserve to practice protocol that we believe would be used on linebacker David Long. He says no decision has been made on that. The other thing is just talking about all the guys that rested last Thursday night in an effort to have the healthiest group of guys he can have out there. That include Derrick Henry, Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry. And he said, the rest of this is you're going to have to just go out and play our best. It depends on how we play as to whether the rest of these guys for 9-10 days going into this was advantageous. He says he has a belief in this team because of the thing that got them the 7 wins they have. He knows that there are things that they have to correct, but he still has plenty of faith in this team, and he knows the challenge in this. I mean, he mentioned some of the stats from the Jags, averaged 28 points a game in their last 6 games.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the last half dozen games or so. We saw what Travis Etienne is really starting to do. I mean, he torched the Houston Texans on Sunday before he was removed from that game just to rest the rest of it. He said, got to get Etienne on the first or second level or it's going to be a track meet. It's 100% correct. So, yeah, Josh Dobbs starts. Lots of guys will come back, not committal on whether David Long is one of those and being the last return from injured reserve to return to practice. So we'll see what happens. But nobody in the building doing anything today. Said they'll huddle up tomorrow morning with the thought that it was going to be a Saturday game, and so tomorrow is essentially their Wednesday.
615-737-1045 to get in on the conversation. This Titans offense that has not scored more than 27 points this season goes to Jacksonville to try and outscore a Jags offense that, as you said, 28 points per game in the last 6. They've scored 31.5 points per game in the last 4, part of this 4-game winning streak that they're on. So the Titans, we had the stat on Blaine and Mickey last week. The last time the Titans/Oilers went an entire regular season without scoring 28 or more points in a single game was 1984. It's the last game of the regular season. Titans are going to have to snap that streak of not scoring 28 or more points, I think, if they're going to beat Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, we're down to they're going to have to play one of, if not their best game of the 2022 season, it being the finale. Because, listen, what has been one of the real things that has turned this season the opposite direction is they've been losing the line of scrimmage, and a lot by their own design with horrible self-inflicted wounds and penalties that have killed drives. We saw a 20-plus yard X-play that Joshua Dobbs threw to, who was that last Thursday night?
Burks?
Yeah, and it was negated by a penalty. Got to quit doing that stuff. They've been okay about turnovers, but I think there is a concern about the recent fumbles of one Derrick Henry and trying to make too much happen. But those are a couple of the big things. And then the defense has to get off the field some way, somehow. They've got to get off the field on third down and hopefully force them into mistakes, because that's one bright spot from the last couple of games is they have started to create turnovers, but you got to capitalize on them once you get them.
Well, that's the thing that held them back in the first Jacksonville matchup. I mean, the Titans are running the ball at will in that game. Derrick Henry had 96 rush yards in the first quarter, the most he's ever had in a first quarter in his career.
Right.
And then Titans are driving with the football. Henry fumbles. Jags get it back. They score. It's halftime. They get the ball out of the third quarter. Long touchdown drive, scoring again. Next thing you know, the Titans are down 2 touchdowns midway through the third, and you have to get away from the run game. So the turnovers in that game directly impacted the way they weren't able to use Derrick Henry in the second half. So that
could have run for 250 on him.
Right. So that has got to be a focal point going in, right? That you feel like the potential is there to get what you want in the run game. Your offensive line is, I guess it's worth saying, more depleted now than it was even then.
Well, sure.
But
because you lost 2 starters on it to IR, before you ever played the Cowboys. So,
but that was the swing in that game, right? Was that Henry fumble that led to a Jags double dipping, so to speak, scoring at the end of the second, beginning of the third, and the Titans are in a hole and aren't able to run the football consistently.
Right, and you talking about they're going to have to get out of the sub 28-point game, scoring totals in this. In all reality, it comes down to you cannot get that score separated at all so that you can continue to do what Derrick Henry does, because that's the way this team is built. And, one of the things that was interesting with Hassan Haskins the other night is how much more they could run inside with him than what normally they would do with a Derrick Henry. I thought Hassan Haskins had a nice night. It was, 40 yards. It was tough, hard-earned 40 yards.
Well, they ran the ball better in the second half.
Yeah.
Titans at halftime had, I think, 21 rush yards in that neighborhood, and then they tack on about 70 in the second half to finish with just under 100 on the night against Dallas.
But, we know the key to this is Derrick Henry and playing keep away, because that's the biggest way you keep them from scoring 28 to 30 points is if they're not on the field to be able to do it. Because, Trevor Lawrence, we have seen him blossom just in the last 6-8 games. Because, what do they start out? 3-7, I think, something like that.
They lost to the Texans early.
Right.
They had some impressive wins early. They blanked the Colts. They destroyed the Chargers. Then they go on a big losing
And he has
streak.
become what we have feared. The minute they hired Doug Peterson, we're like, man, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Because this kid, Lawrence, is good. And he is starting to show that. Can you force him into mistakes? And I feel like the biggest thing, mistake-wise for him, in the turnover part of it, has been losing fumbles in trying to run. Because he can run, and he can make things happen with his legs. He hadn't thrown a lot of interceptions like he did last year. Losing fumbles has been a bigger issue, so maybe that's where you try to work some emphasis there in the takeaway part of the game and getting in there and trying to chainsaw balls out of him when he's trying to carry it for a first down or so.
Well, on that note, help is on the way defensively, whether or not David Long is activated off injured reserve. As you said, that final spot, that final activation out of 8 that the Titans have left appears as though it would go to Long if he's ready.
Yeah.
And we're not sure if he will be. But or you're confident that Jeffrey Simmons is back on Saturday, that Danico Autry is back on Saturday.
Yes.
Christian Fulton is a maybe. Mike Vrabel saying he's hopeful Fulton will practice this week.
Right. And if you could get him back, then you could move Roger McCrary inside, which I believe is probably his best strength, is being in there and a nickel part of this thing. But, if you could get Fulton back, and I think Big Jeff and Danico are right back ready to roll. But if you could get Christian Fulton back, that would be huge in this, provided he is able to, contribute in the way that he could athletically before he's been dealing with his groin injury.
If I were to ask you how your confidence level in Dylan Cole and Amani Hooker playing in this game, what would you say?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 7.
For both?
Yep. I think, listen, you lose and you go home. That's it. That's all there is to this. You win, you're in because you've won the AFC South Division for a 3rd consecutive year, and you're hosting a game at Nissan Stadium next weekend in Wild Card Weekend. It's pretty much that cut and dried and simple.
Let me ask you this. When's the last time the Titans were in a situation like this for the division? They've been in win and in scenarios.
Right. They were 5 years ago against Jacksonville, which was the previously recorded coldest game at Nissan Stadium.
But I mean,
that was a win and in just to get a playoff spot.
I mean, winner takes the division.
Right.
Has that happened in the AFC South era?
You put me on the spot, but I don't believe so. Not for the Titans.
I don't think that. I mean, so you can make an argument that in the Titans era, this is the biggest, one of the biggest regular season games in Titans history.
Sure. And the reason I tend to say no is because the league only in the last decade or so has really started backloading schedules with these potential matchups with implications that could be tied to them.
And there's a few of those this weekend.
Oh, is there ever?
I mean, Bengals, as we said, if the Bengals lose to the Bills tonight, their matchup against Baltimore will be winner take all in the AFC North.
Yes.
So a lot on the line this weekend in the NFL for the Titans. It is a 7:15 kickoff from Jacksonville. We are here until 1 o'clock, but 104.5 The Zone is here until 6 o'clock. Live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill all day, watching bowl game action. Mississippi State trailing Illinois in the ReliaQuest Bowl 7-3. Tulane and USC are facing off. I believe that game is USC 7-0 at the moment in the Cotton Bowl. LSU and Purdue in the Citrus Bowl, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. Cheez-It already has a bowl game. I did not know that Cheez-It also sponsored the Citrus Bowl.
I didn't either until I looked at the schedule today. But, yeah, LSU up 7-0 in that one. USC up over Tulane 7-0 in the Cotton Bowl, and Illinois over Mississippi State 7-3 in the ReliaQuest Bowl.
Does that mean we get a Cheez-It bath after the Citrus Bowl too?
Well, that's better than a Duke's mayonnaise bath. I can guarantee you that.
Well, Maryland won that game, so they got, or Mike Loxley, the head coach of Maryland, got the mayo bath with Old Bay in it.
Okay.
That didn't make it any better for you?
No. I got 2 words for you on that. I'm out.
We'll close out the show. We'll do the poll. 615-737-1045. Lucas Panzica and Rhett Bryan with you live from Scoreboard on 104.5 The Zone. Happy New Year, everyone. Live from Scoreboard Bar and Grill. What a great day of football. Bowl game action leading you right into Monday Night Football between Buffalo and Cincinnati. And here to talk about it until 6 o'clock is 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica with you alongside Rhett Bryan. We're going to hand it off to Blaine and Mickey here in about 15 minutes. But I want you to swing by, say hello, grab some delicious food. Those brisket tacos that I just had are fantastic.
I'm having the Buffalo Burger, and it's fantastic.
Also the coldest beer in Nashville. And watch all the bowl games. Watch Monday Night Football tonight. While you're here, try Oil Fire Whiskey. You will like it. She will love it. And register to win great prizes. So get this. Scoreboard is giving away a Super Bowl tailgate package. If you win, you will have your own private viewing party for 20 of your closest family and friends to watch the Super Bowl. The thing is, you got to be here to enter to win.
Must be present to win.
So it's going to be fun today at Scoreboard as we watch Miss State and Illinois, USC playing Tulane in the Cotton Bowl, LSU and Purdue, Rose Bowl coming up between Utah and Penn State. We heard from Mike Vrabel at the top of the hour. He is hopeful Christian Fulton will practice this week and also appeared hopeful that David Long will be able to open his practice window off injured reserve. They have not made a decision on that yet. Could have a massive impact on the Titans' defensive situation in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and it's everybody's hope that David Long is back there. But I'm going to tell you something else, though. Monty Rice and Jack Gibbons.
Dr. Gibby.
They did a nice job in tandem the other night.
Gibby wearing the green dot?
He is wearing the green dot, yes. Monty Rice is one of those that he is finally starting to emerge and make plays. You know, he had the Achilles, a quarter of the way into the season last year in his rookie year. It's really like he's a rookie again in terms of, not having the game reps in this. And, he's already had one game with double-digit tackles. And I forget what he had the other night. But both of those guys, I thought, did a really nice job.
I can tell you that Monty Rice led this team in tackles with 13 total.
There we go.
Jack Gibbons with 10. So,
there you go.
Those two played really well, and reinforcements coming defensively. We'll see if that means David Long, but we believe that Dylan Cole likely to come back, Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry.
Yep.
So playing for all the marbles in the AFC South on Saturday night. Tonight, big AFC showdown. The 12-3 Bills are at the 11-4 Bengals. So there's a few implications here as far as the AFC 1 seed goes. Right now, Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincinnati all in the thick of things as far as the AFC's 1 seed. Bengals would have to win tonight to be a part of that conversation. Mm-hmm. If the Bills win tonight, then it will be between Bengals and Ravens. They will face off next week, winner take all in the AFC North. But the Chiefs beat the Broncos, and the Bills, I'm trying to remember, the Bills won that regular season matchup, right, in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. They did.
So if they finish out with wins next week, Buffalo would have that head-to-head and the 1 seed. Buffalo playing New England, who's fighting for their playoff lives next week. So big game tonight, Monday Night Football. You can hear the Westwood One call right here on 104.5 The Zone. That is a 7:30 kickoff. A little bit later, got some bowl game action leading right up into that. Let's do some polls.
Oh, Nelly, this is Keith Jackson talking about college football. It's time to stop the count. The polls have closed, and the granddaddy of them all has been tallied with your poll update. Oh, Nelly, talking about Buck Reising Show producer and daily correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. Rhett Bryan, what was the better game, Georgia versus Ohio State or Michigan TCU? Results say 63% for Georgia Ohio State.
And I think a lot of that has to do with where we are and, in the hotbed of the Southeastern Conference. I think you could make an argument that the other game was just as good or better, but I understand why the poll leans that way.
I think the way the talent matched up as well.
Sure.
NFL players all over the field on both sides.
Definitely.
How confident are you that Joe Milton is Tennessee's starting quarterback in 2023 after that Orange Bowl performance? Majority 42% say they're pretty sure, 37% say very confident, 21% are still not sold.
That's a little surprising to me, but I guess they're going off of this was a one-game sample in a big, big environment against a formidable opponent that didn't have as great a year.
I think the coaching staff is sold that Joe Milton is the starter next season.
Which is the most important part of it because that means he will be the starter.
Most impressive backup quarterback in the NFL this year, Mike White, Brock Purdy, or Jarrett Stidham. 79% say it's Brock Purdy, 11% Mike White, 10% Jarrett Stidham after his monster performance yesterday.
How about Jarrett Stidham getting 10% of the poll votes from one game?
One game.
It's Brock Purdy.
It is definitely Brock
I
Purdy.
mean, that dude, it's unreal how good that kid is and just rolling in there like no big deal.
I mean, a lot of talk about the situation he's in, which is great, playing behind a really good offensive line, the best left tackle in football, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Mike Shanahan calling the plays, everything going right for Brock Purdy around him. But I don't know that Trey Lance ever looked this good playing for the 49ers.
I don't think so. No.
Be interesting conversations in San Francisco.
That's one of many offseason conversations. There's going to be a lot of them right here with the Tennessee Titans, but there's several around the league. That is one of them that will be interesting to follow.
If available, who is the most important player for the Titans defense in Jacksonville? 52% say Jeffrey Simmons. 36% say Danico Autry. Only 7% say David Long. 5% say Christian Fulton.
Well, the leaders in the clubhouse there, Jeff and Danico, I mean, you can carve that up however you want. I think the two of them together and maybe as healthiest as they have been since probably week 6 to week 8. I like that combination. And listen, if you can have David Long on top, that'd be just perfect. But Big Jeff and Danico together, that's a good tag team.
Especially with Bud Dupree out for the season.
Correct.
On injured reserve.
Right.
Those are the polls, and that is the show live here from Scoreboard Bar and Grill. Rhett Bryan, Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year to you. Enjoyed the show. Went by really fast, but we thought it would. So much college football and little playoff implication NFL football, especially regarding the Titans involved in our topics today. Went by really fast.
Always does. 104.5 The Zone. We'll be here at Scoreboard Bar and Grill until 6. Come watch the bowl games. Hang out with Blaine and Mickey next. 3HL. After that, big thanks to Jonathan Schaefer for helping us out earlier today. Jackson Williams, who is now on the board for Rhett Bryan. I'm Lucas Panzica saying Happy New Year.